Hello, Hathorians, and welcome to something different. This is Tech Talks. So, this is episode 1 of Tech Talks. We're joined by Hathor's founder and CTO, Marcelo. Marcelo, how are you doing today?
Oh, hi Neil. I'm doing very well, thanks. And you?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, thank you. So, guys, before we get stuck in, today on the agenda, we've got some pre-made questions we'll be asking Marcelo about episode 1 of Tech Talks, which is going to be a focus on nano contracts. We Marcelo's with us today, of course. We've had the new era launch just go live, and we've had a lot of exciting stuff come out in the community, such as the public testnet, the innovation roadmap, loads of cool things. So today's Tech Talks and the Tech Talk series in general will focus on really tech-based topics inside and possibly even outside the ecosystem. And it's great to have our CTO with us to kind of guide us through on our first episode on nanos. So Marcelo, I mean, before we get into the questions, it's been a little while. It's great to have you on screen with me now. You've been busy, you've been busy, and it's great to have you with us, and hopefully on more and more occasions on Tech Talks. Tell us what's been going on.
Yeah, it's been a while since the last time we talked. It wasn't, of course, this is the first episode for the Tech Talks. But I guess we talked last time on the leadership forum, right?
Yeah.
And it's been a while since that. Yeah, lots of things happened since that other episode. Basically, I guess the most important thing that happened is that now we do have a live testnet for Nano Contracts. So there was like that last time we spoke, people asked about like people were curious about when Nano, and
Yeah.
finally we have like a public testnet. We have like people building things on top of our technology, testing the technology. It's a different technology, even though it has some intersection. We're going to talk about this in a bit, but I guess we did like lots of innovations on other sides of blockchains, but I guess that's the hot topic for us, Nano, and I'd say the path to mainnet,
Yeah.
which would be basically the official launch of the technology, and people would be able to use it in our public testnet, our public mainnet. So we are currently in testnet, and we are inviting people to all sorts of people, developers and users and creators to come and understand what they're building and how they can use this piece of technology for their products and for their audience somehow. So yeah, that's where we are now.
Amazing. Well, look, it's great to have you. And guys, we're gonna get stuck in. It's just a few pre-made questions we believe are suitable for this episode. And each episode will probably have a different topic, and this one is going to be based on Nano. So, Marcelo, I'm going to start with episode 1, question number 1, which is why nano contracts are so important for Hathor in general and the blockchain space.
Okay, yeah. It actually started in 2019 with a discussion about the complexity of developing smart contracts. At that time, today there are other tools and lots of there's Zeppelin, Open Zeppelin, so other open. There's like a whole open source community around smart contracts. But it all started back there in 2019, discussing about how hard it was to create a smart contract, and even for a simple thing as like creating a token, it was a very complex thing. At that time, there was like a tutorial that was very famous with like 25 or 20, I'm not really sure, but something like 20 steps, very technical steps to build to create your token. And then we said, okay, at the time, the idea that's how Nano started, and the idea was let's improve the opcode system for Bitcoin's opcode system to create like a better language. So instead of building scripts as they do in Bitcoin, we would like to. The initial idea for Nano was to create more complex opcodes that would allow users to add more complex rules like pieces of software to control the outputs of the network. So people could create a token, a native token in our network, a custom token, and then they would be able to use these opcodes into these tokens to create specific rules. So rules for fees. Many custom tokens they would like to charge fees. So rules for fees, rules for whitelists, rules for blacklists, and all sorts of opcodes. That's how it started. And I guess it's a good idea, but it evolved a lot. But basically, what happened was that the market changed. And after the automated market makers, the liquidity pools, uh, uh, everything changed, I guess, in my perspective.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
And basically, what happened was that there was a new requirement. The contracts, they had to do custody. They had to control funds. It's not a user, it's not an opcode, it's like the contracts controlling the funds. And that's something that, even though it's possible to do using the UTXO model, it's very bad for usability, for user experience. I can dive deep into the reasons for that, but basically the Ethereum way, which is the account-based model, it's like way better to allow contracts to control funds and also to have state. So then we evolved the idea of nano contracts to a high that basically evolved to what we have now for the architecture that we have now. That's a hybrid between the UTXO world and the account-based world. They live together, and in our testnet, they're already live. There you can see both worlds happening at the same time. And so, in our view, we take the best of each world. Scalability is way better in the UTXO world, but in the UTXO world, it's very complicated to have a state, to have a stateful contract, and to control tokens, to have like to allow contracts to do custody, to control tokens, funds. And on the account based, they can do it very easily. So the architecture evolved from development of new opcodes, advanced opcodes for specific for cases to allow better development, better scripts and advanced rules, to a whole change of architecture where we do have the opcodes for the UTXO world, but we also have the account based, where we can have stateful contracts and everything, just like Ethereum and all other smart contract platforms. So yeah, it evolved a lot, it changed a lot, and I can say that it's a pretty our way, the way that we're doing this approach, this architecture is unique. I haven't seen any other blockchain doing something similar. Overall, from the things that I know, blockchains are either UTXO or account based. They are not both, and our blockchain is going to have both technologies on it.
Amazing, amazing. Thanks for giving us. I've actually learned something today. You gave us that brief lowdown on the account based for the more EVM type and UTXO, and I've learned a bit more about UTXO. There are many other UTXO projects out there, so it's interesting to see that as Nano contracts matured and grew over the years to adapt with times, we decided to go with a model that fits both sides. Just like what you were talking about earlier with the Python side for the non-Web3 based people, and also for the Web3 based people to simplify their processes. So thanks for going into that. So I know I touched a bit on traditional smart contracts in the last question. Actually, the first question was surrounding why nano contracts was important for Hathor and the blockchain space, and I know you answered some bits based on Solidity, Rust, and traditional smart contracts. But my actual next question is specifically how nano contracts are different from your traditional smart contract, like the ones that we may have for Rust and Solidity smart contracts, and now we have nano contract smart contracts. Could you give us a lowdown on, for the new community members that don't know about nano contracts, and for those that want to learn more that have been around, what are the main differences between the traditional smart contract we've been seeing over the last couple of years that are running and actively running on DeFi protocols and so on, or whatever it may be, whatever problem they're solving to nano contracts which were debuting now in a public testnet?
Okay, yeah, that's a very good question, and there are multiple answers, and I'll try to cover a bit of everything. I guess first of all, it's like our way into our new strategy. We did a strategic movement, which is basically we're going to focus on Web3 and DeFi, and nano contracts are like the enabler to join this space.
Absolutely.
So this space currently it runs on top of smart contracts, which is what it's what nano contracts are. It's our version of smart contracts. So that's why it's the enabler.
Sure.
So nano contracts is the very first piece of technology that released to join this space and to try to attract use cases and a community to use our decentralized technology for DeFi. I guess that's where it all starts. And I guess the main challenges that we try to address with nano contracts is the complexity of development, which basically lead to bugs and people losing money. Contracts with bugs like where people can withdraw funds illegally. So complexity is one thing. So we are trying to address complexity, and another one is scalability. So on complexity, there are more than one thing. So on one side, we have the developer that's like coding and doing everything. But on the other side, complexity also gets into the way that transactions are executed into the blockchain, which currently opens space for like MAV, the miners, mining extractable value things that I think that they are overall they are bad for traders and for the community. So, but basically we're trying to address complexity, scalability, and costs with a different way of providing fees, charging fees, network fees, and all these things are being tested in our testnet. So yeah, I guess those are like the most important things. So it's important for Hathor because it's our way into Web3 and DeFi. There are other innovations and other services coming on top of Nano. Some are side by side with Nano that helps us to join this world, this space. But on the Nano, specifically on the Nano part, I guess those are the most relevant challenges: complexity, scalability, and costs. And addressing those, we expect to invite all sorts of developers and use case to our network. So we expect to attract Web3 developers, so developers that already know Solidity and they're already learned they know about EVMs and basically our competitors.
Yeah.
So we'd like to invite those to come here and see what they can build and how they can do things differently in our technology. But also at the same time, we'd like to invite developers that are not into the Web3 space yet. And joining, like learning the new languages, is like there's like the it's a slow thing to do, and we expect that with our technology we can speed things up and get like developers that are not on one side they can be like engineers that are not used to blockchains, but also the developers community today it's wider than just like engineers, because there are mathematicians, physicians, data scientists, all sorts of developers that they are not doing integrations with blockchain, and they can do easily using our piece of technology. So yeah, that's the reason that we are joining this space and that we're addressing these challenges that I
Yeah.
said.
Amazing. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head as well with talk about, especially the fees, scalability issues, and scarcity for like the traditional smart contract, and what you spoke about targeting both sets of developers. Of course, it's not just for, of course, we're Python native, it's easy to build. You can teach a developer from Walmart how to code nano contracts. He maybe specialize in groceries his whole life, but that's how easy nanos is. But at the same time, it's to show the EVM compatible people that, guys, Solidity, you know a lot, make your life a bit easier and benefit from how we're solving these issues. So spot on. I want to backtrack a little bit before we move forward. I know it's backtracking
Okay.
a little bit before we go forward. I kind of want to just want you to, because we have a lot of new community members as well, and loads of, one of our main mottos in the community are win nano and so on. So I just kind of want you to walk us through how the concept of nanos has evolved over the years. I mean, me personally, I joined Hathor team just after mainnet, I believe. So even for me, I've seen the growth of nano, and a couple of the OGs have as well, in terms of it being a proof of concept and growing to where it is today, where we can actually feel it, play with it, and test it. But for those that don't know, how has the concept of nano contracts evolved over the years, over the last couple of years, let's say?
Okay, of course. And I'll start like highlighting that from the use case perspective, if you look from a very far distance from the engine that's running the thing, it's the same. What I mean by this is that everything that you can do on any other smart contract platform, you can do on Hathor and the other way around. So it's a machine. Nano Contracts is a machine that can do the same stuff as you can do on other platforms, on other blockchains. So what's the difference? Why Hathor? Why Nanos?
Yeah,
So and the reason is just like for computers. You can do whatever you want with all sorts of computers, but we do have like different types of computers with different performance, different ways of doing stuff. So, and that's where we are different. Our architecture is different. There are some differences on the way that we execute transactions, and there are some differences on the order that we execute transactions, and those make a difference. That's like my initial answer. So as you mentioned Python, I guess that's one point that's different. Uh, um, I'd say that a good analogy is that Python is a high-level programming language, while Solidity is a low-level programming language. Even though Solidity has like mappings, which is basically dictionaries, and they do have arrays. In Solidity, you have to take care of the programmer, the developer. Have the developers? They have to know how the machine works in a deep level.
yeah,
For instance, let me give you an example.
yeah, sure.
When you're adding two numbers in a regular computer, there's a thing called overflow that might happen. And if you talk to anyone that has ever developed in C language, for instance, or in a low level language, the developer, they know about it. They must know. Because there's like a maximum value that a number can have. So if you try to go over that value, it gets back to zero.
Sure.
That's an overflow.
Okay.
And you have to prepare your software to handle these cases. And that's how it's done in Solidity. Even though Solidity has improved the way that they handle this after version 0.8, they still require developers to understand overflow, how it works, and that's one of the reasons that OpenZeppelin is so important, because they have like a math library that is safer to use, where developers, they still have to understand things, but they need to have less understanding. And when you go to Python, if you get like someone that doesn't have like a background in computer science, and but they are like Python developers, if you talk to them, it's very likely that they've never heard about overflows,
Yeah,
because Python does a thing automatically. It handles any value for numbers. If the number gets bigger internally, it uses more bytes to store the information automatically. This structure is called big int, so it grows as much as needed, infinitely. So in Python, you can add things without worrying about overflow. But in a low-level language, you cannot do this. That's one difference. And I guess this example is here just to show how hard it is to learn Solidity. It's not about Solidity, but it's about EVM and the machine that's running behind the smart contract. And many bugs in the blockchain world came from like neglecting these things. So overflows that were mishandled opened room for people to withdraw funds without authorization. That's just an example. And in Python, they don't have to worry about this. So when we say that we support Python or you can develop nano contracts in Python, it's more than, it's like on the lower level, it's kind of the same, but for the developer, it's not the same because the developer needs to know less stuff, needs to understand less things. It's not important for developers to understand overflow and to understand how the transactions actually executed behind the scenes. And in Solidity, all these things matter, but not in Python. So that's one reason that we think that we can reduce complexity. It's a higher level language that does lots of stuff for the developer automatically. So the developer finds a way more friendly environment for developer to develop their software, and this more friendly environment brings more security.
Yeah.
The developer can focus more on the business rules, on the business logic of the contract or of the use case, and less on the technical aspects of the code. I guess that's the point. So that's one point that we are very different. And the way that we can execute Python, as I told in the beginning, from a very far distance, it's kind of the same. You look and say, okay, you're running code. Yes, that's true. It's kind of the same. But if you get closer and closer, you're going to see that the way that our machine executes the Python code is very different from the way that the EVM executes the Solidity code. And besides that, we have all these advantages from the Python language, the Python machine that handles all this stuff for us automatically, and for the developers too. So the difference lies on the details. As in every technology, the difference lies on how we do some sort of stuff. But with like a higher level language, for instance, we reduce learning curve. So it can be way more cost effective for use cases to build on top of Hathor than to get like a more expensive engineer who deeply understands EVM and Solidity so they can do something safer there. A less experienced developer can do less experienced blockchain wise.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the experience developing, but developing on top of a blockchain.
Yeah.
Because even though it seems like the blockchain machine is like a computer, it's not. There's lots of details there. And our goal is to simplify these details in a way that the developer, they don't have to care about those details. That's I don't know if it's clear, but I'm trying to touch like it's very of course I can get more technical here, but maybe it's a bit too much. But yeah, the difference lies on the details of how we execute transactions, how we store information, how we can retrieve information for the contracts to run. Overall, go ahead.
What example was running through my head? Correct me if I'm wrong. It could be a very stupid example, but I was thinking as you were explaining overflows, and then you talk about complexities. Like I was thinking about a stick shift car and an automatic car that doesn't have doesn't need a clutch. Like so, nano contracts or Python, let's say for example, you don't have the complexity of like overflow. So no need to manually shift your gears when you have an automatic gearbox. And then we were talking about like other simplistic things. And I was like, maybe it's also like diesel compared to conventional petrol engines, which are more, and maybe a 2 liter compared to a 1.2 liter, which is more fuel economical. And I was just thinking about cars, like two different cars, one that was not fuel efficient and that is very hard to drive with a manual stick shift, and the other car, which is an automatic car and fuel efficient. That's what was running through my head when you were explaining
That that
overflows and stuff.
That's a good analogy. That's
Okay,
I
good,
guess
good.
it's kind of like this. On one, the things happens automatically for you, so you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
focus on driving. So
yeah,
for moving from point A to point B.
yeah,
But if you get like a car expert can explain to you how manual gears are
yeah.
better,
Oh yeah, there you
and
go.
he's not wrong.
Yeah,
But it depends on who's driving.
yeah,
And I guess that's the same here.
yeah,
So that, of course, we are. It's on our roadmap to add support for Solidity.
yeah, absolutely.
So our goal is to invite and to attract people that are already developing for Web3 and
Yeah,
people that are not developing for Web3.
sure.
So for the people that are developing for Web3, of course, if a developer knows Solidity and wants to build a nano contract, they can. We're
Yeah,
going to have support for Solidity. But if for some reason they feel more comfortable on Python, or if they don't understand Solidity well enough, or EVMs or blockchain well enough, they can transition and use Python and do all sorts of things. And besides, like Overflow is just an example.
yeah,
Python has all sorts of data structures ready to use that you don't have on Solidity. So you have DEX, you have sets, you have other more advanced data structures that you can build on top of those that you don't have on Solidity. So for the developer, it's it's way easier to work on a high level language.
thank you for that. I enjoyed this question the most so far. So,
Yeah,
overflows, Python, Solidity. We're talking about simplifying here, guys. And actually, this also links to our next question, which is all about, nano contracts are said to simplify blockchain interactions. And what I want you to explain, Marcelo, um, is basically why not just whether it's a company or user or whatever it may be, why they don't need deep knowledge to engage with nano contracts. Because as you probably know, with other conventional, when you hear about smart contracts, usually you think, it's quite difficult or takes a lot of time, costs a lot of money. Why does nano contract not require such deep blockchain knowledge to engage with?
okay. A short answer is because our machine is closer to a regular computer. I guess that's a good analogy.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not precise. There's differences, of course,
Hmm. Hmm.
but when one is developing their nano contracts, they just have to think. Just like, of course, there are some things that they have to have in mind, and one is that they can imagine that their program runs a sequence of executions
Well,
that's always linear.
mhm.
So they just have to test for linear stuff. So they can say, okay, if the state is this and this action happens, then that's the expected result. And that's all they need to know. They don't need to understand how the machine works, and they don't have to take care of the details of the machine. And how the machine works, I guess it touches several things. Uh, uh, um, on Ethereum, I'd have to dive here on some of the bugs that happens on some of the contracts and how people lost money, how people could get things out of a contract
Sure.
without authorization. But most of this, if not all, but most of these bugs, if you look at the code, you say the code's correct. How could one do this?
Sure.
Because the logic is, you look at the logic and you say, yeah, it feels correct. But you need to understand how the machine works to understand why the code doesn't work. That's the problem, and that's one of the points that we try to to stay away from. So we try to get like a code that runs in a very straightforward way, so, which basically means closer to a regular computer. So when a developer is coding something, the developer keeps like a state in mind. Okay, that's how it runs. This and then this happens. So just let me give you a concrete example. When you are developing like a betting contract, you have this idea. Okay, before I have the results, people can place new bets, and then I'll close the bets, and then the result will come from an oracle or somewhere, and then after the results come, people can withdraw their gains, and whoever lost, they lost. There's nothing to withdraw. Basically, like that's like the basic workflow. And in a decentralized world, you might have to think, okay, but what if there's no money? What if there's no result? Oh, okay. So if bets are closed and no result comes after a day or something, people can withdraw their money and the bet's closed because it failed. I don't know. The oracle failed for some reason. So these are all business logic. They are not related to how they have to execute, how the machine is going to execute this business logic. And what Python offers, in my view, for developers overall, is that they can build these things, and Python is going to take care of the details for them. When I'm not talking about Python for Nanos, just Python overall, and they're going to run on several different machines. They run on Windows, they run on Linux, they run on several different operating systems, on Mac OS, and Python takes care that behavior happens regardless of the machine where it's running. And I guess that's an analogy here of how we're doing this. We're doing the same. We're trying to get like the complexity out of the programming language. So when you read something, that thing is going to happen regardless of details of the machine, of the execution machine, or the execution engine. And that's how we are simplifying for developers. They don't have to understand a lot about blockchain because it's way closer to what they already understand. Make sense?
That last quote you just said, they don't need to understand blockchain because it's already basically what they know or what they understand from traditional coding, like you say,
Yeah.
whether it's like, I don't know, whether it's UX, UI, front end, whatever it may be. I don't quite understand, but what I would say is if I did start developing, I'd probably get more familiar with nano contracts faster than I would with Solidity because it's close to the raw base layer of understanding programming languages. I guess what you're
For
saying.
sure. And I guess that's one of the reasons why Python became so big, a big
Yeah.
language.
Mhm.
It's everywhere, and it definitely has like, I might be wrong here. I don't know the numbers, the statistics, but I don't know if Python is the one that has more people that are not engineers developing in it.
Sure.
But it's amazing how many people you have from other areas.
Definitely.
So physics, control, chemistry. Wow, you have like mathematicians, cryptographers. Usually cryptographers, they're really good at math,
Yeah.
but in order to code in a low level, because cryptography requires low level coding usually, it requires like a deep knowledge of how a computer works,
Yeah.
because it's very easy to make mistakes, not on the math, but on the implementation. But all these guys, all of those, they come and they use Python.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to understand the details, and Python provides like a common language where they can describe what they want to happen, and Python is going to find a way to execute this regardless of the machine where it's running into. And that I get that's a good analogy. So I guess, and that's the reason that Python welcomed so many people to their programming language, because they don't have to understand. Or I'm not saying that you have to know nothing. No. You have to know. For us talking about Nano, for Python, for whoever have never coded but is learning to code, Python is the easiest way. It's very, very easy because you can do lots of stuff without knowing stuff. But if you know Python, going to Nano is absolutely straightforward
Wow.
because you don't need to learn blockchain.
Yeah.
Everything is there. That's what we're doing.
That's exciting because as you touched on the statistics of Python being probably used, let's say it'll be great. I'm going to try and find the infographic or the stats on that. But let's say, for
Okay.
example, like you said, physicians, mathematicians, and so on, like people that are very well versed and proficient in their industry, that they can now implement a use for nanos within their industry because that's that's what's quite exciting, so yeah, thank you for diving in on that. And as we're on that topic, actually my next question does link to that, and it's based on developers. As you all know, if you're just tuning in now, we're on Tech Talks, and as you already know, we have a new era that's out, and part of the new era is a grants program where developers can come and see some of the preferred use cases that they can build to get a grant from Hathor or build their own and submit it via application. And my next question links to that directly, especially to developers from any realm. How can how how can developers quickly get started on creating their own nano contracts? Is my next question. Could you provide any brief information for those that don't already know? Provide a guide on how they can really kick things off, and any upcoming upgrades that developers can look forward to in the near future.
Sure. Yeah, I guess the definitely the first step would be to
Sure.
go to our website. We have our team has been working hard to provide like good documentation, which basically means like step by step instructions on how to do basic stuff.
Sure.
But I can tell you that for people that already know Python, for instance, it's just like programming Python,
Mhm.
and they're gonna build tests just like they do using Python unit test library. It's very similar, and they're going to run the tests. And after the test passed, let's say that their contract is complete. So first step, I guess, is to go to our website. There are step-by-step guides there. And this step-by-step is basically shows because there's quite a few things that they need to understand, simple stuff. And they can right away create like a very simple contract. So they build the tests, they run the tests. When everything is ready, then they can send this to the blockchain and test. That's basically this. In order to send to the blockchain, they need a wallet. So it depends. For to develop something, you don't need to have access to the blockchain. You can do on your computer. Even if your computer is offline, if you have everything installed, you can just play with it. You can code and run offline, completely offline. And after it's complete, like your code's complete and it's complete, you have all the tests passing and everything is okay, then you can submit your code to the blockchain, and then it's going to run on the blockchain. And then immediately it's going to be available for the wallets to interact with the contract and do whatever your contract does. But everything in the website. We have like this SDK, we have some templates, we have examples. I guess many people they learn by changing. So not coding from a blank code. So they get like a template and they like change and customize. Okay, I want to change this, and then I want to change that, and then I'll create a new method here, and that's exactly what we have there. So and all the commands and everything. The SDK runs in Windows, in Linux, in Mac OS. So regardless of your environment, you have like a way to develop. What else? Yeah, I guess that's it.
Because I think, look, it's blockchain made easy, guys. I think you've just summarized it quite easily on how the developers can really get started. Simply just go onto our docs page, as Marcelo said. There's a SDKs there, and one thing I didn't realize is templates are there. They could just chop and change things out to begin their journey. It's not even that they have to do it from scratch. And that's how easy and modifiable, I guess, existing contracts are. We've really made it simplistic. So thanks for guiding us through that. So I guess, yeah, guys, docs page, you have all of the key information there that Marcelo has just mentioned. And yeah, if
Yeah.
you're a new developer, yeah, go for it, Marcelo.
Oh no, and they can also go to Discord. There's a community of
Yep,
developers there. They can ask questions. They can get help. We have
sure,
our team is already there in Discord, so that's I guess the quickest way
sure.
to get help if you need. So something's not working. What's wrong here? Why isn't this working? And all those because when you're developing, when I gave a programming course in a Brazilian university a few years ago. And when I was a temporary professor there. And I used to tell my students that programming is the art of making mistakes and fixing your mistakes. So when you're developing, it's very rare to have your code running first time. So you run, it fails, and then you fix it, and then it works, and then you change something to add another feature, and then it breaks again, and then you create a new test, and then after a while you have like 10 tests, and then you make a change, and test A was passing, now it's failing. So you are always fixing stuff.
Yep.
All the time until everything passes and you say, okay, now it works as expected. I guess that's so. If you are doing this and you are like, you can't find why things are not going the way you expect, you can go to Discord and talk to us and get some help.
Amazing. Amazing. So you've got the offline documents there, and you've got the team on a dedicated Discord channel that can kind of answer your questions if they're around in real time, but definitely certainly when the message gets received. So thanks for running through that with us, Marcelo. And look, lastly, we've just covered the origins of nanos, how it's chopped and changed over time to adapt to how the markets are. We talked about everything from overflow. We talked about, I think it was account based, UTXO based. We've talked a lot of detailed tech related thing when it comes to nano. So thanks for running us through that. The last thing I want to kind of cover with you is nano contracts. Where are we now? We're in a public testnet. And based on you being the creator of Nano Contracts and you seeing its journey from beginning to end, I really wanted to give your initial impressions on how you feel that Nano Testnet has been going, and what should the community expect in the next steps, and why are these next steps and developments so important to the future, to the road to mainnet, let's say.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Well, we are right now running the testnet,
Sure.
and I'm very happy with the feedback that we're getting.
Mhm.
We're getting feedback from the explorer, feedback from the wallets. So wallets are what users use. So it's very deeply related to the overall user experience
Absolutely.
because people they interact with the wallets, not with the blockchain.
Yeah, yeah.
The blockchain is like an abstract thing, but the actual thing that they see, that everyone sees, is like the wallet. So we're getting all sorts of good feedback, and also we are getting feedback from the developers for things that sometimes it happened just once right, so far, like a feature. Oh, I'd like to do this, and I say, oh, I didn't do, there's no way to do this right now. Let me add this.
Yeah.
And then I go and I add and I give them like a new code so they can run. And we upgrade the testnet with that new feature so they can use. So yeah, I guess so far we've been getting like lots of good feedback and learning out of this feedback of how people, what they want to build, how they
Sure,
want to build, and how we can make their life even easier.
sure,
Uh, 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 and of course, looking for bugs, and for here, I'm not talking about like necessarily like security bugs or critical bugs. Any bugs we can find. So even if the wallet sometimes, I don't know, for some reason loads something wrong, we have to fix that so the wallets can load faster. If things getting starts to get slow for some reason, Usually it's not related to the blockchain. It's more like indexing and intermediate stuff. So we are learning from this use and the feedback. And we still have a few things in our roadmap to test in the testnet. So one thing that we'd like to test in the testnet is that we came up with an idea to prevent, it's like an anti-MAV mechanism where it would be impossible for miners to do MAV, which basically, in a more specific way, they cannot order transactions the way they want. They cannot add transactions, remove transactions, or order the transactions in a way that's convenient for miners. And for this mechanism, we have more than one idea. And so we'd like to test these ideas and see which one works better from the contracts perspective, from the use case perspective, and choose the one that's going to go to mainnet. So we have more than one solution for the same problem, and we want to try and understand which one works best, even though they all solve the same thing. They all solve the same problem. So we have this anti-MAV system that we'd like to test. And we also have one idea that would allow the execution of transactions at the mempool, which would, on one side, speed things up, but it would also simplify some aspects. When you talk about liquidity pool and interface, the liquidity pool has to estimate how the mempool is going to be executed, so it can suggest slippage and some configurations in the UX. For instance, liquidity pools is just like one example. So if a blockchain is able to execute transactions at mempool, it would be way easier and better for user experience overall. So we have a few ideas of how we might be able to do this. It's an open problem. No blockchain can do it today. And we're looking for a way to do this. So there are some research areas that we'd like to test in the testnet. And if they work well, they're going to go to mainnet. So we have this short roadmap. We also would like to add support for more, because we have the Python engine, and we're adding a WASM, a WebAssembly engine too. And through the WebAssembly, we'd like to get the Solidity running on Nano. So the WebAssembly would also open for other programming languages, but usually the con is that the code gets too big. That's one point. So we are still exploring if WebAssembly is the best, if we are going to have like a customized WebAssembly machine, what we're going to build. But definitely for the Python, we have something that works very well, and we are discussing about adding a second machine that is going to run in a different way, so we can get other programming languages into our blockchain too. So all these things are going to take place in the testnet.
Oh.
After we have the answers, we can say, okay, that's the thing that seems to be really useful and has like a competitive advantage when compared to the competitors, to the other blockchain platforms. And then we can get this and move to mainnet. Security-wise, we haven't found any security bugs so far, which is good. So yeah, it's really good. And it gives us like confidence that things are working as expected. And it seems like safer and safer that we can, we feel at least the impression of safety. Our feeling of safety is that things are safe and good. So that's another aspect that it's security is like a tricky thing. So, but usually an important metric is time. How long has things been running without big issues? That's the metric. That's a very important metric. So with the testnet so far, no critical bugs, no security bugs, which is good. And after we have the answer to these questions, we can decide, okay, that's the best overall architecture for mainnet. And then we go there. We have already in place all the tools that we need to launch at mainnet. We needed the feature activation, it's there. We needed a sync v2, it's there. So everything is there. Nano is kind of, now we are in a position where we are trying to learn what's the best nano architecture that we can deliver.
Yes.
Because it's not that something that we cannot change after we deliver, but after it goes live, it goes on mainnet, changing things, it's harder, takes longer. For different reasons. One is that it's a blockchain, so we need to execute, we need the before and after a change. So for compatibility reasons, we have to execute in a different way. So we have to have both codes there. So coding, the code base gets like bigger and more complex because we need to have everything, all choices there. That's one thing. And if we need to change a transaction or the way that we serialize something, we need to create something new and keep compatibility with the previous one. And in the testnet, we can change without these concerns. And I don't know if, because it's very technical, but it makes a whole difference
No,
on how
definitely.
fast we can move.
I think
Uh,
you explained this to me before. And, what you're basically saying is the testnet is the importance of this testnet is while we're in this testnet phase, any changes or fixes we can do happen way faster to what you just mentioned about if we go live on mainnet and where the blockchain now things are connected to mainnet, it will take a lot longer. So actually, the public testnet is needed, for these changes and feedback. And back to the another analogy you mentioned before in the call when you were talking about when a developer learns how to code, it needs to break first so that he can kind of fix it. It's kind of like this is what my analogy is that with the testnet is we want to see these little issues here and there, whether they're just UI, UX, or whatever it may be, like loading message run, because that's also gives us that feeling that we want to make sure it's perfected. And as you said, with all of these other features you were talking about with WASM and so on, like all of that being in the testnet phase, but also making sure everything's absolutely perfect in testnet so that we can do it much faster and much smoother, I guess. That's why testnet's important.
yeah, that's a good summarization. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I've just summarized it for you. Okay, amazing, amazing. So I think uh Marcelo, we can wrap it up there. Um these are all the questions I have regarding to nano contract specifically. And I really appreciate that you've given us a really technical lesson from beginning, middle, and to where we are now, what's to come on the inside information from a developer's perspective on why things happen and why things happen a certain way. Because me personally, I've learned a lot now that I didn't really know prior to this call, and it does make sense from the origins of nano contracts to how they formed and changed, and the reason why nanos are better that compare better to traditional smart contracts, and what you were telling us about UTXO, everything. It's been a really technical lesson today. So for those who have been listening in today, this is Tech Talks, and this segment of series is mainly going to be quite technically versed, and mainly for community members, but mainly also for developers. I guess we want to invite those Solidity and Rust developers to sit down, listen to this, really reason with us. And of course, Marcelo mentioned that Solidity support is coming down the line as well. So I guess on the next episode, we'll be talking more about other technologies that we're working on, probably linking towards the innovation roadmap and what's to come. Although Marcelo, you've also given us some alpha on what's being done in testnet, so thank you for that. Before we part ways today, is there anything else you want to mention or talk about? The stage is yours.
Well, yeah, I guess I'm very excited about the moment that we are, because we are getting more and more attention from developers, and our community, I guess, has been like very supportive of what we're building. I know that it took a while for us get here. And the main reason before was that Web3 and DeFi was not our priority. We were fully focused on the business, on the B2B side, let's call it.
Absolutely.
And so priorities changed a lot in the past, and we didn't really had the time to work on nanos. But with this change of strategy that we did, this movement is really good. And now Nano Contracts is our top one priority project, and we have more than before. It was just me and sometimes another engineer working with me. But now we do have like a bigger team working on Nano, on different sides of Nano. We have people on the wallet, on the indexing, on the APIs, on the full nodes. Wow, all sorts of people supporting the development of Nano. So I'm very excited to see all these people working together
Yeah.
and using Nano in different ways, and internally at Hathor, like building Nano with me. So I'm very excited and looking forward to see how it's going to be received
Yeah.
when we go live.
Cool.
So I can tell you that I'm very anxious about like the launch at mainnet,
Yeah.
to see what people are going to build on top of this stack, and
Absolutely.
how they're going to use it, and how we can adapt it to make it even more competitive. Because I guess the main challenge now is that when there's a timing thing. When it started in 2019, there was like just a few layer ones
Sure.
and a few even use cases using smart contracts. But now the market changes a lot. There's lots of competitors, so we need to have like a good positioning to fight these guys. And that's one of the reasons that the testnet is so important. We need to test the usability of the things that we're building. So after we launch, we can definitely grab a share, a significant share of the market. That's the goal, and that's where. And so my message is that Nano is our top priority. It's the enabler for Web3. That's our main goal right now. And so we have lots of efforts and manpower working on it. And the challenge is to have to offer, after it's launched on mainnet, a very competitive technology to attract use cases from other networks to our network. I guess this is like what we're targeting.
Yeah, and not to go off topic, but I feel like it is the best time out of when I measure out the 4 years since mainnet, and I've been here over 3 years. Where the team has come. Like you speak about Nano, but we talk about all the great things with like tokenization, Dora and Ether Private Bank, and those are great achievements that still sit side by side with this new era. And it's amazing to see. Like personally think it fell right into a good place, and I feel like now is it's good to have competition, and it's good to see the best of the best be out there, right? Like you may talk about DeFi back in 2021 or 22, and where is DeFi today? And what chains do we have out today? And what can people do with smart contracts compared to, like you said, what they could do 2 years ago or 3 years ago? So I feel like if you're going to release something or bring it to market, you want to do it in its golden days, and I do think the golden days of Web3 are here.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. That's it changed a lot. It's been changing, and it's certainly going to change the next 5 to 10 years.
No,
And so that's the reason that even after we launch Nano, there's lots of work to do, because the
absolutely.
market is going to shift
Shift.
to receive new use cases, new companies, new communities actually. and we want to be there competing and attracting and basically offering, okay, because blockchain in my view is like it's an infrastructure technology.
Sure.
And as you said, everything that we're building now is very compatible to all the partners and all the use cases that we had already onboarded in our network. So they can keep doing things the way they do, or they can move to a to a nano contract or to or, I mean, they can choose whatever is best for them.
Absolutely.
They already work the way they work, but they are gonna have like new tools to improve their products, their services, whatever they do. And Nano is definitely a big tool when it's there.
Well, Marcelo, thank you so much for your time. I believe we've just crossed the hour mark, and I could go for another hour, but we do want more episodes with you. So I look forward to jumping on with a call with you next week at some point to discuss the innovation roadmap, going in more to a technical deep dive into some of the other technologies. But as for nano contracts, thank you for taking us through the origins, the middle, where we are and where we're going. And guys, if you have any questions, you're a developer in our ecosystem, outside of our ecosystem, just to touch on this, go to hathor.network. The first link to our new era is there. Thinking of building on us, we've got grants available. Need to speak to the team, we've got our dev team on Discord. Need to learn about the SDK or how to build, we have the docs. Everything's there waiting for you guys. And now is the best time to join the ecosystem, and we're here to support you. But guys, until the next episode, that's enough from me. Marcelo, thank you so much. It's great to have you on video again. Really look forward to getting you on the next call in the next coming weeks. And let's keep bringing tech uh, and some of your knowledge inside Hathor and outside Hathor. Really looking forward to getting you on this forum for loads of technical debates.
Thank you so much, New. It's a pleasure to be here talking to you and with our listeners. I hope they enjoyed the conversation. And as we were discussing, like just before starting this recording, there's all sorts of topics that we can include in this tech talks. So I'm very excited about like making those happen and like bringing more tech content to our community. So thank you
Absolutely.
very much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. You're definitely filling a void, and we look forward to bringing more of content surrounding technology and Hathor inside, outside, getting picking your brain on different topics. So thanks for your time, and we'll see you on the next one.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye.